Are you struggling with Imposter Mode? Maybe you're trying to learn more about Imposter Mode. Well, you've come to the right place. There's lots of parts to this, so I'd advise you view this on YouTube and use the chapters to skip around if you want to. The first thing I'll be going over is explaining what Imposter Mode is. It's different from the runs you do to progress through the story, and it's important you know what these differences are. You'll be going through 10 floors total. There will be 3 floors each from Joblin, Winky Dink, and Styxcoin dungeon. These 3 dungeons will be in a random order each new run. Each 3rd floor of these dungeons will be the boss fight. You'll be facing the dungeon's first form of the boss, not the true founder version. The 10th floor is always the imposter's room, where you'll challenge the imposter. One of the things that makes Imposter Mode difficult is that you can't start a run with a mentor selected, a pinned skill, or the health upgrades you've earned through the story mode. You will always start with 3 hearts. To access your mentor's perks, you have to find them in a room like how you find a skill. Then you pay money to obtain them. Oh, and don't think you can buy all the mentors you come across to have their perks active, because you can only have 1 active at a time. The cubicle boxes dropped by the delivery drones at the level exits don't give you skills anymore. There's a total of 7 overtime modes you can unlock as you complete the highest overtime you have available to you. Each overtime adds a modifier to your run to make it more difficult. These modifiers are cumulative. For example, let's say you're starting a run with overtime 4. That means the modifiers for 4 and everything before it takes effect for that run. What do you get for completing these? New looks for Jackie. When you're going through a run, expect to get hit a lot. This means you need to figure out how to keep your health up and get shields to soak that damage. You can get food from various sources like shops and challenge rooms, but there's 4 items I want you to be aware of to restore health. The first 2 items are the wall banana and that meat. They both restore half a heart of health. The wall banana can be found in all the dungeons randomly taped to walls. You might need to do some climbing to reach them. That meat is found only in the Joblin dungeon. If you do find it and you must clear the room of enemies, be careful not to destroy it from hitting it. I'm mentioning these 2 because they don't cost anything and you can come back to them later to consume them. Other food items that drop go stale or bad after you leave the room and come back. The other 2 items are the self-care app and Fizzle Ginseng Kale. The self-care app will drop from various sources. It heals 1 whole heart. If you don't pick the app up before leaving the room it appeared in, it will break when you re-enter the room, making it unusable. Use it immediately or try to take it along with you if you can for use later. Cans of Fizzle Ginseng Kale appear when you have the appropriate perk from Fern. It heals half a heart. The good thing about cans of Fizzle is they don't expire when you leave the room and re-enter it. Just like the self-care app, it can be picked up and used later. Next, I'll be going over skills to keep an eye out for that will restore your health in some manner or grant you shields. Bloodsucker gives you a random chance to heal. Not the most reliable, but it's better than nothing. Defensive will grant you a shield when you receive any kind of healing. Doesn't matter how much health it heals, you get 1 shield. Remember those wall bananas and that meat? Those work well for this. Good Consumer gives you shields when you pick up a bricked phone and eat them. You get bricked phones by encountering apps, not picking them up, and then leaving the room they appear in. After you come back, find the phone on the ground and pick it up to eat it. Overprotective gives you 4 shields, but you permanently lose a heart. Think carefully about when you're going to take this skill. Purchase Protection gives you a shield when you spend $10 or more. Note, it's dollars, not crypto. Lastly is the best defense. You'll be encountering enemies with shields more often as you progress further in your run, and this skill really helps you keep your health from dropping. Just like the skill reads, you can only get a shield if you have none. I'm going to be mentioning one weapon that drops food when it's damaged. That's the bento box. To obtain this, you need to first buy the perk where you get a packed lunch from Fern. After you go down to the next level, the bento box will appear in your hand and make you drop any weapon you're currently carrying. Damage the weapon by hitting it on enemies, objects, or simply throw it against the wall. It will drop Musubi, Onigiri, Dango, and then break. Each of these foods heal one whole heart. The thing that sucks about this perk is that you only get one bento box. Keep this in mind before you decide to get this perk, because it will take the place of the perk you currently have. Money and cryptocurrency is going to afford you health, shields, skills, and weapons for your run. That means you need as much as you can get your hands on, even if it's a little. Besides getting money from enemies and briefcases, you can find more money and breakable objects through the various dungeons. Look out for jars containing money in the Joblin and Winky Dink dungeons. If you look carefully, you'll see some green in the jar. Smash it for some money. In Styxcoin, you'll see jars with a bit of gold or yellow in them. That's crypto. Smash it and get that crypto. You might also come across rocks with crypto on it. Destroy them with a mining tool to get the crypto. I see what you did there, Aggro Crab. Mining for crypto. All 3 dungeons are going to have cubicle boxes laying about. Break these open for some money. Be on the lookout for these because the bougie cubes especially seem to drop a good amount of money. I'll be noting some weapons you might consider using from each dungeon. I think these are worth mentioning because they aren't as rare as, say, a legendary weapon, provides some kind of utility, or has good damage. From the Joblin dungeon, there's the Wactus and Tablet Pen. The Wactus comes in 3 sizes, regular, XL, and XXL, and I find that the regular one is most desirable when you don't have the freehand skill. It swings quickly because it's one hand, does a good amount of damage, and it can also serve as a good weapon for drone smashing. You can find these by smashing Wactus jars scattered about the Joblin dungeon. Next is the Tablet Pen. The 4 damage isn't the greatest, but it's guaranteed to shock enemies. If you can poke them once, you're most likely able to follow up and continue poking them until the weapon breaks, unless there's something there to interrupt you, such as another enemy. 3 weapons from the Winky Dink dungeon I think are notable are the low hanging fruit, red fire extinguisher, and the fizzly bottle. Low hanging fruits deal 9 damage and it's wielded with one hand. The charge attack allows you to hit things above, which makes it good for smashing drones. You'll find them hanging from the roofs of the dungeon. Pick up an item you can throw overhead, such as a throw pillow, box, or a jar. Stand underneath the low hanging fruit and throw it to knock it down. Using weapons that swing up or overhead works too. You're going to find 2 colored fire extinguishers in Winky Dink, the red and a blue one. They might be laying around in plain sight, or you might find it in a fire extinguisher box you need to smash open to access. The red one is going to allow you to freeze enemies. If you're struggling with certain enemies or there's just too many of them to deal with, carry one of these around with you and use it to freeze them. This way you can manage which enemies you deal with and how you deal with them as you see fit. The last weapon I'll be talking about in Winky Dink is the fizzly bottle. You might see many bottles in Winky Dink, but this one is special. Look for the one that isn't green. I think it's red or brown? The initial attack with this bottle is a ranged attack that deals 10 damage and causes the slow debuff if it hits. Tip: don't aim this at the Mosey, which is a small slime. They're too short to be hit by it. The first swing of this bottle will break it. Afterwards, you can stab your target for 4 damage until it breaks. For Styxcoin, be on the lookout for a sus barrel attached to a stick. This is the sus hammer. Don't mind the regular attack. What you're interested in with this weapon is the charged overhead attack. You can cause the sus hammer to explode immediately if you do a charged attack with it. The explosion itself is going to do 20 damage alone, not including the swing you did to cause it to explode. This means that it's going to do lots of total damage if you manage to hit your target with the charge attack and the explosion. You can use this weapon to quickly kill an enemy or do tons of damage to a boss if you manage to land a charge attack. Note, this won't work if you have the freehand skill, as this changes how it swings. Are you struggling with the imposter's second form? The form I'm referring to is the crab form. If you're struggling with dealing enough damage to finish the fight, did you know you can use a stiletto that's summoned by the imposter as a vehicle to damage them? The imposter summons the stiletto when it does the spin attack. When you see the stiletto, use it and gain some mobility. Then carefully try to land on the imposter with it to deal 50 damage and stun it momentarily. While it's stunned, you will be able to attack it. Watch these clips to understand what I'm talking about. I know the clips I provided of this does show some kind of weird inconsistency with landing the stiletto onto the imposter, but I hope this helps you win your fight against the imposter. Good luck. Do you love apps? I know I love apps. Having access to apps definitely contributes towards a successful run. That's why I try to destroy every delivery drone I come across. I can't tell you exactly how much health a delivery drone has, but if you deal at least 16 damage, that's enough to destroy them. Destroying them also takes a bit of luck, because if they decide to appear out of reach of your weapon, you are just out of luck, unfortunately. If they appear like they should within the reach of your weapon, you can hit them. Try to get hold of a weapon that deals at least 8 damage and swings upward or overhead when you use a charge attack. This will let you reliably destroy drones, although you can use something weaker. Just know that you're going to have to land 2 charge attacks on the drone, which is actually difficult to do. Some of the weapons of choice I'd use for this specific task are the Wactus, not the XL or the XXL, Jabal Warhammer, Sledgehammer, and the low-hanging fruit. The Wactus and Jabal Warhammer are found in the Joblin dungeon. The Sledgehammer is in the Styxcoin dungeon, and the low-hanging fruit is in the Winky Dink dungeon. What if you have the freehand skill though? This is going to alter some weapons and their charge attacks. This is indeed an issue, but it's not as bad as it seems. You're still able to use certain weapons to hit the delivery drones. I've done some experimenting and found out that not all weapons can reach drones with a 360-degree charge attack. Foam Finger seems too short for some reason. Any weapon with a long length is able to hit the drones. Some examples of this are the Sledgehammer, Jabal Warhammer, and Jabal Greater Sword. When you do the charge attack, the 360-degree swing isn't actually parallel to the ground. It can actually reach the drones. Position the drone to Jackie's front upper right area and do the charge attack. It'll hit the drone as long as it's close to the ground. I haven't experimented with all available weapons in the game, so feel free to try out things to discover what works. Don't sleep on ranged weapons, especially the legendary ones or the vending machine gun. Ranged weapons allow you to deal damage safely from afar and minimizes the chances of you getting hit. This is especially important when you get to the higher overtimes, where taking a hit during the final rooms on a floor or boss fight do twice as much damage to you. I cleared overtime 7 with the help of the vending machine gun. If you come across the Loaded for Bear skill and are able to obtain a good ranged weapon, try to synergize the skill with the Upcycle app to help you in your run. Loaded for Bear is going to give you twice as much ammo, and Upcycle will restore a ranged weapon to full ammo when it's used. Note, you can use the Upcycle app on an empty weapon to restore ammo. One of the more powerful damage boosting skills available in this game is wearing many hats. What's unique about this skill is that it increases damage based on how many hats you are wearing. When you initially get the skill, it's going to be +1 damage if you don't have any other hats on at the moment. Every additional hat is going to add 1 more damage. I'll be going over some of the sources of hats besides other skills you may obtain to boost your damage with this skill. This skill may seem weak initially, but with the way Imposter Mode works, you're guaranteed to add a minimum of 3 hats if you stop by all 3 Styxcoin shops and get the hat that's at the shop. The one I'm referring to is placed in the center of the shop that you can walk up to and pick up. By doing this, you have at least +4 damage from the skill. Now that's a good chunk of damage. Even if you don't have the skill, make sure you grab the hats, because you never know if you encounter a skill later in the run. Another source of hats are from one of the enemies in Winky Dink called Howdy. This emoji or slime is in a cowboy boot, wearing a cowboy hat, wielding a handgun. If you kill it, make sure you pick up the cowboy hat that it drops if you can. Also in Winky Dink is a rare room that you might encounter that has many moai heads, both upright and sideways. If you look around this room, there's a unique moai statue. I'll describe it as a human-like figure made out of moai statues. Refer to a clip to understand what I'm talking about. There's a cowboy hat on top of this statue. Climb onto it to get the hat. If you do pick up this hat, a Howdy will spawn and you can kill it to get another cowboy hat. That's +2 damage if you manage to get lucky and encounter this room. Another way to get damage easily is to have Jackie use a skin that has a hat. Some accessible skins include the Contractor or the Miner skin. Here's some footage to prove that. This part is going to be thoughts on challenge rooms, entrepreneur, and secret rooms. They all give you the opportunity to obtain skills, weapons, health upgrades, or just cash. But is it worth the penalty or effort? Sometimes it is, and other times it isn't. Some things you need to consider could be how far along you are in the current run. Does the reward potentially make the run easier? Can you clear the challenge without much effort or loss? These are just some things to consider before you do a challenge room or accept an offer from the entrepreneur. One challenge room I advise you steer clear of most of the time is the Styxcoin challenge room. You have to obtain enough crypto to get the best reward. A problem with this is that it might spawn some tanky enemies that are not only going to take away your health, but won't give you enough time to kill them all. Another thing with this challenge room is it's based on how much crypto you collect. If you manage to kill the enemies and somehow all of the crypto in the room doesn't make it to you before the clock runs out, you've just wasted your efforts. You need to have lots of damage to consistently clear this challenge by killing all the enemies. If you just need some cash or crypto, you can always just stick to grabbing as much crypto before the time runs out, but be careful of taking damage if you go this route. The Entrepreneur has good offers sometimes, while other times it's completely passable. Here are some curses I think you might want to think about a few times before accepting the Entrepreneur's offer. Curse of Brick Wall is going to make it so enemies don't react to your attacks. This means they're more likely to hit you because they don't flinch anymore. If you're trying to keep your health up, stay away from this one. Curse of the Graduate is going to strap a weighted ball to Jackie, limiting movement. Being limited on how you can move is never a good thing. If you feel comfortable with this curse though, by all means go for it. Curse of Self-Centeredness is a neat curse until you realize that it takes away your awareness of where all the enemies are in a room. This is going to make it likely you'll lose health. Avoid this one if possible. Curse of Void Warranty is going to make all weapons you pick up or use break easily. When you can't deal damage consistently to clear a room, this becomes a problem. If you have the aggressive skill where it boosts break hit damage, this can help alleviate the drawback of this curse, but this curse is definitely something you want to avoid. Curse of Woman Pants has a similar effect to Void Warranty, only that you can only carry one weapon at a time. If the weapon you're using breaks, you're going to be scrambling around to find another one to use. Sometimes the weapons available in the current room aren't that great. Lastly is the Curse of Post-Mortem. This curse causes all enemies to go kaboom when they die, damaging you and anything else caught in the explosion. This might seem negligible if you aren't in range when this happens. The real issue with this curse is that the enemies that go kaboom don't drop any more cash. If you need cash to buy items at the shops, which is most likely, this curse is bad news for you. These are just my thoughts on some of these curses. You might have different opinions on curses, and that's okay. Last advice on curses is consider not taking them if you're about to fight a boss. The curse is going to be with you during the boss fight. Depending on what curse it is, the handicap might be severe and make the fight much tougher than it needs to be. You might have encountered secret rooms during your runs. They usually give you something that helps immensely during your run, like a legendary weapon. That's not entirely true though, because there are rooms that can be dangerous and the reward isn't worth the effort. Some of the secret rooms can spawn enemies, or it's going to be what I'd refer to as an obstacle course. The enemies have ranging difficulty depending on what spawns. From all my playthroughs so far, I would rank Joblin secret rooms as being the easiest to deal with. Next would be Winky Dink, and the hardest being Styxcoin, depending on what secret room encounter it is. One of the secret rooms I think can be dangerous in the Styxcoin dungeon spawns 3 chump chains of different colors. Chump chains are not easy to deal with sometimes. It's even worse when you're dealing with 3 at the same time. So before you go into a secret room in the Styxcoin dungeon, consider how far you are in the run and consider maybe not going into the room. The Blood Money skill lets you exchange half a heart when you buy items in the shop when you don't have enough money. You might have noticed that this is like getting hit and you have a short time frame of invincibility. You can exploit this with the skill to buy more than one item at a time. What you do is simply buy the next item after you lose that half heart. Watch this to understand. I'll be going over 2 mentor perks that I think have the most noticeable impact on your runs when you're able to get them early in your run, and a skill synergy to watch out for. The level 1 perk for Swamp and Tappy are best obtained early in your run. Having the level 1 perk for Swamp allows him to steal an item from the shops. Tappy's level 1 perk allows you to earn more money. Having Swamp steal an item for you saves you money that you can spend on other items that you might want. You don't have lots of control over what Swamp steals, but my advice is to at least buy the weapon that shops offer because they cost the least, and this eliminates the possibility that Swamp is going to steal you a cheap weapon from the shops. With Tappy, having more money means you can buy more items from shops. Tappy's perk synergizes well with purchase protection, which grants you 1 shield when you spend more than $10 in a shop. Now, for the skill synergy that doesn't pair well together, that would be Crushing It and Best Defense. Crushing It ignores shields from enemies when you use a blunt weapon, while Best Defense gives you a shield when you destroy one from an enemy when you don't have one. You'd expect to ignore enemy shields and get shields while using a blunt weapon when you have both of these, right? Nope, not true at all, because I've had these two skills together before and they don't pair well at all. Watch these clips to understand how they don't work together. Due to the way imposter runs work, you can enter into the Joblin or Winky Dink dungeon while still having cryptocurrency. Too bad that crypto isn't accepted in these two dungeons. They only take cash. If the Styxcoin dungeon isn't your third dungeon and final dungeon, make sure you convert any crypto you have left before fighting Hustlebones, otherwise you'll be stuck with crypto that is just useless. The obstacles you encounter in the dungeons not only can affect you, but also all the enemies too. If you're getting overwhelmed by enemies, try using the environment to your advantage. In the Joblin dungeon, you'll slip when you go over the coffee spills. You're aware of this, so you'll go around them most likely. The enemies, not so much. You can lure the melee enemies near these spills and have them slip on it. This will give you an opportunity to strike them when they're down. In Styxcoin, you'll see big blocks sometimes hanging or swinging around. If you're getting overwhelmed by the Styxcoin enemies, lure them near the swinging blocks so they can get knocked down and take damage. There's also the blocks that are stuck together. You can use these as a barrier and cheese enemies by attacking them while they're mindlessly trying to reach you by walking into it. See those minecarts? Don't let the wood construction fool you. These are surprisingly strong. I highly encourage you to use them and run them into enemies you want dead, like racketeers, power loaders, or chump chains. For some reason, it just erases the power loaders' HP bars really fast when you ram them with the carts. You might have to lure them onto the rail, but it's worth the effort. In Winky Dink, you'll see vents that shoot out ice or fire. These can be used to your advantage if you carefully fight around them. The fire vents aren't too useful, I think, but they can set enemies on fire to damage them. The ice vents, on the other hand, can freeze enemies. This is particularly useful if you're in a room dealing with many enemies. Stay near it and try to lure enemies onto it to freeze them. This next one is a bit more dangerous, but let's talk about sus boxes. Depending on how many there are, or the location of the sus boxes, do consider hitting them. They do a good bit of damage, especially when there's a chain of them. You might take a hit, but in exchange, you have the potential to do lots of damage to many enemies. Depending on which dungeon you're in, you'll run into barriers and other stage furnitures. Some of these might be destroyable, but others not so much. The AI doesn't know how to navigate around this stuff. This means you can get them stuck behind something and have more control of when you want to attack them. Be creative with this. There are many ways to use this. Okay, it's time to talk about the toughest overtime there is, and that's overtime 7. If you have this available, the description says there are no health upgrades available. Not entirely true. Two things with this. First is that the room for growth skill gives you a health upgrade, essentially. So if you see it during your overtime 7 run, try to prioritize it if possible. That one extra health really makes a difference. Second, Physical Classic, the health upgrade now gives you 2 shields when obtained. No more stacking or buying tons of health upgrades and restoring health with food. You need to rethink your strategy for taking hits in overtime 7. Taking damage during level exit fights or boss fights, take off a whole heart or 2 shields. Start figuring out how to get tons of shields so you can take hits. I mentioned skills that will give you shields near the beginning of this video. This last piece of advice might be the lamest, but I think it's something you should consider if you're struggling with any of the overtimes. If you aren't aware already, there is something called Assist Mode. This is found at the screen where you're selecting a save file to play. The options provided can make your game much easier when enabled. Don't feel ashamed of using this if you just want to beat overtime 7, get the awesome skin, and Steam achievement. Thanks for watching. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe. If you have anything to add or comment, please do so. Good luck and have fun in Imposter Mode, and until next time.